you think it'd be a good idea to reverse Brexit, like, at this point?
I don't think now is the right time to be talking about it. I mean, if we actually took all politics out of it and the media and the frenzy, blah, 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 it is 100% the right thing to do for the economy, right? We've got Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng talking about, we need growth. Brexit is anti-growth. Brexit is putting trade barriers up with our biggest trading bloc on our doorstep. It is hammering our exports by 40%. It is killing, I think, 30% of export businesses to the EU had to close. It's so ridiculous that we've got this paradox going on, and we can't say anything about it though. No, shh, because you can't reverse Brexit. Brexit is the biggest barrier, one of the biggest barriers to growth. So actually, if we were just like, if someone was sensible in power, I don't care what the bloody Daily Mail, I'm going to reverse Brexit tomorrow if the EU will have us, because straight away we will see GDP start to rise, growth start to rise, all the other good things start to happen again. But we can't do that because we've got to play the game and we've got to play media. So I don't think now is the right time to talk about it, sadly, because of those reasons. But I think when the next party comes in, there needs to be sensible discussions about all the damage that Brexit is doing, continuing to do. Bearing in mind, we haven't even unleashed the full extent of Brexit, right? We've still got suspensions on some of the border, what do you call them? The rules and regs and stuff, restrictions, exactly. So I think there needs to be a full and frank conversation once the next party is in power, and then go, we need to revisit this, people. And actually, if there was another referendum, and I hate the idea of another one, but we know that people have gone, yeah, that was a crock of shit, and it's awful.
I'm not convinced that we would vote to go back in.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 100% am. But even all polling suggests
polling outside of about 6 weeks away from something is just guesses.
Fine, but I think but also no one's really hammering home what Brexit has done.
No.
So if you look at the right-wing press, they're still trying to portray it as a success. Whereas actually, if those discussions were happening with, the leadership was pointing it out, and actually, you had the BBC doing a job of landing it, then I think actually we could be in a much better position.
But I don't think the argument would be solely about the position that we're in. I think that the state of Europe would be a huge talking point, because I think that, right, so like my first book was about Brexit, and I talked a lot about the Cambridge Analytica stuff, the leave, the vote leave, alleged law breaking, the electoral commission stuff, the dark ads on Facebook, the way in which data was harvested, stolen, abused, used. And I didn't want Brexit to happen. I voted Remain. But in the course of writing the book, I did a lot of work on understanding the position of the politicians, and B, the people who were voting for it, and the arguments in favor of voting not the stupid fucking 350 million for the NHS, the actual fundamental, are we better off not being attached to the EU? And I think the EU is going to go through some fucking crazy times in the next 5 to 10 years, if not the next 6 months. Winter is going to get scary. Obviously we're going to be affected by this as well, but I get the feeling that what's happened with the energy markets, there's a lot of sort of more right-wing anti-European people with it being elected across Europe.
Italy recently.
Italy, for example. Although I guarantee none of the people complaining about this woman have ever looked into her ever. And it's hilarious to watch people scream, because I saw a couple of speeches from her and I was like, it's so obvious why people are voting for her. She's like, look, we're going to look after your family. We're going to defend your right to just be you. And we're going to go after these big corporations that have been trying to exploit you and just turn you into consumers and slaves. And I was like, right, this is hyperbolic language, but this is actually exactly what she's tapping into here. And I think it's the same thing that was tapped into in the Brexit vote. It's this rejection of globalization. And I think that people's sort of desire to be more isolated is only going to increase as things get crazier in the world. So this is why I'm not convinced that we would vote to go back in.
I have to agree to disagree there as well.
Well, what do what do you think I'm wrong about?
I think people are starting to see a real decline in terms of things like the standard of living, and they're seeing like industries on their arse. So hospitality, for example, agriculture, horticulture, fishing, all the things that I think they're starting to see. I hope they're starting to see that all the things that were promised, this sort of utopia post Brexit Britain. You'd go into your GP and it'd be like a spa, and your NHS would be just basically asking you to come in. Like, please do come in. We've got so many appointments. I think people are seeing rising food costs, everything. It's not what it was promised. What was promised.
Yeah.
Even like the queues that they're facing at the airports and Dover and whatever. Loss of freedom of movement, people's retirement plans, stuff is starting to land now, I think. So my hope is that people are seeing the state of the a bit like it'll be a protest vote. I think it's like, we tried that Brexit, it was shit. And I think that's what I'm hoping that people will be waking up to, and not necessarily knowing. People don't know, they're not as close to it as most of us. A few of us are, and they'll just go, actually, that Brexit was a bit shit. Let's go back in again, and maybe not understand all the complexities around it, but just know that we tried it, and everything fell apart. Whether it was all down to Brexit or whether it was down to Ukraine or whatever, I think people go, it didn't really work out, and actually. There's all the same amount of immigrants, if not more, and in fact more migrants coming over on dinghies because it would never have anything to do with that. So, that's my thinking. I hope.
Yeah, I mean, all of the things you said I think are true, but at the same time, I can see the response to them. It's like that people would say none of these things are solely linked to remaining in the European Union. Like none of the things that aside from the immigration side of things, freedom of movement.
What about sewage in our waters?
But the argument would be that we can regulate these things outside of the EU. Like we don't need to be in the EU for our government to make reasonable and safe, protecting like bits of regulation on water, on anything. For me, the argument is. Blaming these things on Brexit ignores the fact that it's the fucking government that are doing it. It's like we could leave the EU and keep all those standards, but we don't, because the government has decided they don't want to, and the people have said, well, to this point at least, they've acquiesced to it at the ballot box. We'll see how long that lasts, but.
It depends on the level of understanding of some people. Like some people will understand that part of the reason that their shopping has gone up is because of Brexit. Their food shop has gone up because of Brexit. Their holidaying abroad has gone up because of Brexit. Basically, I think when people can make the link between what actually is Brexit, example, then their plans to retire abroad, gone. Like that's when they will know it's an error, and it might be something as little as I can't take my dog on holiday as easily as I used to. But I think the people who have been impacted, whether it's, again, the queues or whatever, or airports, they're the ones that have changed their minds. The ones who haven't been impacted will be harder to convince. But again, if you think how close we were, 52-48, what it'll be now, I think I would bloody hope we'd swing the other way. And if we didn't, oh my God.
Would you accept it? Would you move?
I'm never going to accept it. I'm never going to accept it because it's built on lies. So this is another thing, and it came up today in a tweet about what, again, I think Labour would have to do if they came into power, because I don't think proportional representation is enough. In fact, I think it's, again, great step in the right direction if they do deliver it. But I also think there needs to be an overhaul of party financing, because otherwise we can end up with another Brexit situation. The Electoral Commission needs to be made independent again and given more powers to actually really commensurately punish dodgy and illegal electioneering. Because if you look at the pitiful amounts, things like I think Vote Leave were, what were they fined something like 60 grand or something, but completely insignificant amount.
I think you're right. I think it was 60,000.
60,000, like the billions that were made from anyway, it's just pointless. And also the other thing I think we need to look at, which is reforming political advertising. So if you look at New Zealand, they regulate lies in politics, and yet in this country you can say anything you want. Like Boris
Actually,
Johnson
can we
did.
clarify this? Because I'd read your thing posting about this the other day, that they're regulating like political advertising. I think it's very difficult to regulate what a politician says in the House of Commons.
This is true.
The advertising, though, was literally the like 50% of the point of my book. Was literally saying what you're saying now, that we need to, that we regulate all kinds of advertising on television, on radio,
Cat
on
food.
TV.
So my point was, if you make cat food and you make a tin of cat food and you put that on the shelf in Waitrose or wherever, those advertisers, Whiskers, are held to a higher standard of truth telling than our politicians who can put 350 million on the side of a red bus. How is that where we are? So whether it's so the lying in Parliament, that is supposed to be kept in check by the Ministerial Code of Conduct, right? So if you lie in Parliament or mislead, you are breaking the Code of Conduct. You are supposed to go back and correct the record, the Hansard record. That's not done. So now you can just lie wherever. Also, you've seen some of the literature that comes through your doorstep, or arrives on your doorstep, and they just lie. And why wouldn't you? My point is, if you can lie, and there are huge rewards and no punishment, the reward being you get to power, why on earth would you stop? Like, so that something needs to be in place. So again, with proportional representation, my concern is you might get someone like, Tyson Fox Reform Party. Is that what it's called?
Lawrence Fox.
Yeah,
Is it Reform UK?
Whatever,
Reform
some
UK.
bollocks party. So
It pisses me off that we were talking about the lack of opposition, like alternatives. Like, it fucks me off that that's the alternative, because he's a prick.
I mean, it's definitely not an alternative. I don't see that.
But I mean that he's a party outside of the established like system.
Yeah, my concern is what stops Fox and Tice doing what they do best, putting out absolute bullshit as truth. Richard Tice, who strangely is very charming when you meet him in person, but you can't ignore the fact that he is he was a crucial person in terms of making people believe complete lies. And you look at the Vote Leave video that he came out of his party, and I've quizzed him on this directly. There's no remorse. These people are shameless, and there's no punishment. So because all that could happen is you've got, say for example, Tyson Fox put out another video that's full of this like, vote for us, you'll get this utopia, and they won't. You won't deliver it, but nothing will be there. There's no mechanism there to punish them for doing so. So that's why I feel like we need regs in as well as proportional representation, just to keep things.
Yeah. I mean, for political advertising, like you should. Yeah, if things are just not true, then they should be like pulled on it. It's the same as like advertising for, like, you can't stand up. Like, there's a lot of like fuckery that goes on with like the way people word things in terms of studies and advertising, and like, it's like 9 out of 10 dentists recommend Colgate, and it's like you did 10 like surveys, and then the one that had 9 out of 10 dentists is like, we'll go with that one. There's a lot of fuckery in the way they do it, but they're still held to so much higher a standard.
It's a manipulation of that. It's a massaging of numbers.
Which is why it gets really difficult in some cases, especially when it comes to politics and opinion. It gets really difficult to regulate.
Yeah.
Because then you have to go to someone. It's like, okay, you are now the arbiter of truth, and they're like, I've never figured out who can be that person.
So there is the tweet that I put out today. There is a campaign for this. I think they're called advertising reform. Gosh, I should get this. It'll be on my Twitter. But if you can pull it up, that'd be really handy, because I do feel like they need a plug, and you should follow them. They're doing some great work. They've actually got quite far in Parliament with this. So this would be a cross-party. The people that would decide whether something was a breach of political advertising standards would be cross-party. So it'd be from all of the different parties, as well as industry professionals. So outside of politics, you've got the Advertising Standards Authority, and you've got other bodies who are independent, who regulate. So that's how you do it. That's how they would come to some form of consensus.
It's called Reform Political Advertising.
Reform Political Advertising. Go and follow them. They're doing some great work, and they are making headway.
Yeah.
And I think that changes everything again. So you can't, because Peter Oborne touches upon this in his book, The Assault on Truth. He says when a politician lies to you, and you vote for them based on that lie that you think is a truth, they are stealing your vote from you.
Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment for us in the comments below. Let me know what you thought and if you'd like to see more of this from the show. Thank you, and we'll see you again next time.